This is Brother Peter Diamond, vaticancatholic.com. I want to tell you a story, a true story, about an individual who bawls and cries when he is criticized, and cares so much about what other people think that he will publicly beg them to stop criticizing him, yet at the same time this person purports to speak without compromise on behalf of God. I want to talk about Jeremiah Bannister, who also goes by the name Paleocrat. About 6 months ago was the first that I'd ever heard of this individual. He wrote us a letter on January 16th, 2010, thanking us for the work we have done and indicating that he and his wife had recently become convinced of the sedevacantist position. It's interesting that we received this letter one day after we posted our video, The Most Specific Heresy in Vatican II, and I believe that video was something that convinced him or played a part in convincing him of the sedevacantist position. In his letter, he indicated that he had questions and problems with what he understood about the CMRI's position on outside the church there is no salvation. He also directed us to a few of his videos on YouTube. I briefly looked them over and watched 2 videos. One of the videos denied the dogma outside the church there is no salvation. It indicated that it only applies to those who are, quote, knowingly outside the church, and that, of course, is completely wrong. He also linked to various traditional groups, all of which are heretical and contradict each other, and almost all of them denied the sedevacantist position, which Jeremiah now claimed to hold. So, in a charitable reply, I thanked him for his interest, but I also charitably pointed out that there were problems, namely his video that denied the dogma outside the church there is no salvation, for it espoused not only a heretical position, but one that he didn't even claim to believe in anymore. And I also pointed out that you cannot, as a Catholic, promote groups that espouse positions that are in conflict with the true faith. I also pointed out a few other problems, such as the secular nature of his whole approach. He, in fact, promotes rock music and other foolishness. We received no reply from Jeremiah, and he did not remove the heretical video, which he no longer claimed to believe in, according to his letter. Instead, he came out publicly and shared with his friends that he was now convinced of the sedevacantist position, and he mentioned some of our material. He said some positive things, but also attacked us as, quote, scandalous. And he even lied about us, saying that we condemn people who, quote, laugh. That, of course, is totally untrue, and for him to say it is a mortal sin. He also committed another mortal sin by leaving up the heretical video. He obviously wasn't concerned about what God thought of that matter. It should also be noted that our reply to him was a private email. We had no reason, no intention to mention anything publicly about this individual, whom we had just heard of for the first time. But instead, he attacks us publicly and lies about us. His pride was obviously wounded by the fact that we pointed out the serious problems with what he was doing. His intention was not pure. If he had analyzed the veracity of what we were saying and thought about whether it's in accordance with truth and morality, he would have discovered that it is. Instead, he was consumed by his own ego and pride, the fact that he wanted to be doing these YouTube videos when he is not spiritually fit, he doesn't even believe the way he should, and he obviously, as we will see, does not have the fortitude to do it. And so we can recognize that the individual was of bad will, even though he claimed to be sedevacantist. He also now embraced publicly the heretical CMRI, which promotes sinful NFP and salvation for members of any religion. He was obviously drawn to the communal feel of their group. That's what unfortunately sways most people. They are more concerned about their friends and the community aspect of religion than the truth. And so he claimed to be sedevacantist and spoke with apparent confidence on why the Vatican II Church is completely heretical, why Benedict XVI is a complete heretic, how the new church is totally incompatible with traditional Catholic teaching. He often employed many of the facts and arguments we do, sometimes with attribution, sometimes without, yet displayed a pathetic and in fact disgusting weakness and liberalism, We of course recognize, since he promoted heresy and heretical groups, that the individual was unfortunately of bad will, in mortal sin, and not a true Catholic, even though he did come to the correct position on sedevacantism. Other people, whom we'd characterize as false sedevacantists, did not see it that way, and so obviously thought this individual might have been of goodwill, which of course we recognize was not the case. Anyway, in the process of discussing things and sort of arguing with his former Novus Ordo friends and acquaintances about why Vatican II is wrong, etc., they criticized him a little bit. And the criticisms were simply about what he claimed to believe in, how it's not of Christ, etc. And this individual, Jeremiah, is so concerned about what other people think. He's so pathetically weak that in response to this very mild criticism from the most evil defenders of Vatican II apostasy, and no true Catholic would care one bit what these heretics think, he posts a video in which he's bawling and crying about this criticism, essentially begging them to stop criticizing him because he's so distraught over it. He is clearly a pawn in the hands of the devil. Anyone who cares that much about what people think is ripe for deception by the devil. He is silly putty or Play-Doh in Lucifer's grip. St. Francis Borgia points out that he who consecrates himself to God must in the first place trample underfoot all regard for what others say about him. If you care about what other people think, you will be deceived, you will be led down the path to hell. And especially if you try to direct other people and or debate and engage in theological issues publicly. But the pathetic, disgusting, mortally sinful, cowering, and I would say girly, but it would be insulting to females, way in which he's bawling, begging for mercy from these total apostates was truly a sight to behold. And so when we heard about a week or so ago that he switched back to a defender of the Vatican II Church and completely rejected the sedevacantist position, it didn't surprise us, but it's quite a dramatic shift. And so now, after about 6 months or so of acting convinced and speaking with what he thought was sophistication about how clearly Vatican II is heretical, etc., he's now completely on the other side. The truth is that the guy is of Satan. He believes in nothing. He's a mortal sinner. He doesn't care what God thinks, because after he became a sedevacantist, he left up the heretical video on salvation, which espoused a position he didn't even believe in. But what's interesting is when he became a non-sedevacantist about a week ago, he removed all of his videos which discussed sedevacantism and promoted sedevacantism. And so that's very revealing. He didn't care that he was offending God by leaving up the video on salvation that espoused the position he didn't even believe in. But when he became a non-sedevacantist about a week ago, he knew he'd be offending man by leaving the videos promoting sedevacantism up, so he removes them. This is a servant of man, a servant of the devil. And this individual who can't figure out what he believes, he's like a heretical reed in the wind, going back and forth. He purports to direct others about the, quote, erroneous hermeneutic of sedevacantism. It's all pride. He thinks he's smart. He thinks he's sophisticated. In the words of Apocalypse 3:17, they think that they are rich and wealthy and have need of nothing, but they don't see that they are wretched, miserable, poor, and blind and naked. He thinks he's sophisticated. He's an unbelieving, heretical fool whose intention is not pure. And I'd challenge him to a debate on sedevacantism. If he's concerned he won't get a chance to speak, we can go 2 minutes back and forth. I doubt he'll accept because he might start to cry. This is a guy who, quote, converted from Calvinism. I don't know how long ago, probably not very long ago. Then became Novus Ordo, then became sedevacantist, now is non-sedevacantist. And we don't begrudge anyone the right to go from darkness to light. St. Paul talks about, you were heretofore darkness, but now light in the Lord. People can convert. But when you go from darkness to light, to darkness to light, to darkness to light, okay, back and forth, you have a serious problem. You don't have any firm-rooted faith. A person of God is not swayed back and forth all the time. He is steady. He is firm. It's also worth noting that this is a guy who promotes utter foolishness, this Jeremiah. He links to rock music, promotes rock music, features videos that are just foolish, sinful garbage, yet at the same time purports to talk about how people need to be educated in asceticism. This married lay person, who is obviously totally worldly and has given up nothing, constantly changes his beliefs, is talking about how other people need to learn about this and that. He is an abomination. It's just a total outrage, and this is why a heretic like this can see all the evidence, the gory details of Vatican II apostasy, how they teach that non-Catholics may receive communion, esteem Islam, teach that non-Catholics shouldn't be converted, agree with the Lutherans on justification, act after act of apostasy. If you can see all that and obviously recognize that this is apostasy and then go back to defending it, you are truly of Satan.